I stood by my sister when she decided Grandpa would walk her down the aisle, not our dad, because after everything our parents put us through, how could we let them be the stars at her wedding? Their sudden interest after years of neglect wasn't about us, but their image. And when my sister stood her ground, I made sure she knew I had her back. Watching Grandpa well up when we told him was everything. I'm Emily, 35 feminine, and I have 2 siblings. My sister Julia, 29 feminine, and my brother Ethan, 23 male. Our parents are very religious and conservative, always obsessed with appearances and what society thinks. From the start, our parents desperately wanted a boy and were visibly disappointed when both I and then Julia were born. My mother even considered not having me when she learned I'd be a girl. But being religious, she stuck to her beliefs and brought me into the world. According to my grandmother, Mill, when I turned 2, my mom sent me away to live with her because she was too depressed to have me around. Life was honestly amazing with my grandparents. My grandpa, Phil, taught me how to ride a bike, which became a core memory and cemented our bond. My grandma, Mill, taught me all about tending a garden. I still rely on her lessons to this day, every time I watch something bloom. Meanwhile, my parents never visited or checked in until I was 7, prompted by nosy acquaintances questioning why their daughter didn't live at home. They begrudgingly took me back, even though I pleaded to stay where I finally felt stable and loved. After 3 years, my parents were overjoyed to find out another baby was on the way, another girl. They weren't as openly upset this time, and Julia didn't go through what I did. She got to stay at home. Growing up, it was obvious they treated us differently. I was constantly assigned chores, pressured to manage the house, and felt like I was always being tested. Julia didn't have as many obligations. They'd relaxed about parenting by then. They also treated our education very differently. I had to excel academically, with extra classes and high expectations, and even my best efforts were met with lukewarm approval. Julia, when she began school, didn't face nearly as much pressure, and she was celebrated for every little success. I tried not to resent her for this, but instead focused on supporting her, knowing it wasn't her fault. We stayed close, despite the lopsided way things were at home. Then came Ethan, 6 years after Julia. Finally, the boy they'd hoped for. They threw a huge family party, and from day one, Ethan was treated like royalty. He had the best of everything: cribs, toys, clothes, and a room that made mine and Julia's look shabby. Our parents were super present for him, going to every appointment, taking tons of photos, and taking pride in every milestone. Julia and I got none of that. Our grandparents remained our real support system, especially after Ethan was born. As Ethan grew up, the unfairness continued. He didn't have to do chores, got huge fancy birthday parties, and was generally celebrated at home, while Julia and I were left on the sidelines. By now, I had internalized their indifference, but Julia experienced it for the first time and found herself turning even more toward our grandparents. Our relationship with our parents only got worse as we matured. As a teenager, I became the rebel because I had political opinions different from my family's. Anytime I tried to express myself, whether about my beliefs or just if I felt sad or angry, my mom would either burst into tears, telling me I was stressing her out, or she'd yell at me and then ignore me for hours. Julia, as she grew older, struggled with mental health and needed help. Our mom refused, always insisting my sister didn't really need treatment, and when Julia had panic attacks or anxiety, she was told she was just burdening our mom. Things came to a head one night when our parents lost it and told us how much of a disappointment we both were and that they wished we hadn't been born. Julia and I couldn't take it anymore. We grabbed our things and escaped to our grandparents' house. Our parents eventually showed up, demanding we return home. Mill told them off for how they'd treated us, and my father smugly retorted that he provided food and shelter. So what more did we want? Phil, normally so calm, lost it. For the first time, he shouted at my dad and told him to be ashamed. He threatened to call CPS if my parents ever mistreated us again. That scared them. Ethan was still little, and they definitely didn't want to lose custody of their golden child. Phil stood up for us in a way no one ever had before. He told my mom that as his daughter, she'd never been treated the way she treated us. My mom was embarrassed and silent. That night changed everything. Our parents got more cautious after Phil put his foot down. They still spoiled Ethan, but the constant yelling calmed down a little. When I was 18, I wanted to go to college, but my parents had a fit, especially my mom, who argued that as a woman, I should just be getting married and having kids, and that no man would want a highly educated woman. My dad joined in, mocking me for even trying to be independent. They discouraged me at every turn. I still applied and got a 4-year scholarship due to an honors program, which meant my parents didn't have to pay a cent. They were furious, but I didn't care. I started living on my own, picked up a part-time job, and finally learned how to be an adult. Sometimes it was tough juggling everything, but I got stronger. My parents barely checked in. I graduated, got a full-time job, and moved in with roommates. Our conversations dwindled to practically nothing. I'd reach out when things went wrong in my life, only to remind myself they never actually cared. Cutting them out was a conscious decision for my own peace. The only family member I stayed close with was Julia. When it was her turn to go to university, our parents threatened to kick her out if she tried for higher education. I told her to come live with me, and she moved in so she could attend community college. Providing for us both was exhausting, but worth it. I wanted her to have opportunities I didn't. Ethan's story was different. Our parents encouraged him to go to college, and they'd set up a college fund for it. Ethan didn't face a single one of the obstacles that slowed down Julia and me. Knowing this was bittersweet, happy that at least one of us had it easy, but sad that we never did. Through all this, Julia and I remained each other's strongest allies. Determined to rise above our childhood, our grandparents, especially after all those years, never stopped being there for us. After Mill, our beloved grandma, passed away a few years ago, Julia and I rushed home to be there for Phil. It was the first time I'd seen our parents in ages. They just nodded at me, no warmth whatsoever. I was already raw from grief and nearly break down, but I knew my mom would only scold me for creating a scene. After Mill's passing, Julia and I spent more time with Phil, visiting regularly, sharing meals, talking on the porch, and helping around his house whenever we could. One day, during dinner, Phil told me he was proud of how I'd always taken care of my sister. I was stunned. It had literally been years since someone had sincerely praised me. He told me Julia was lucky to have a big sister like me. I choked back tears. I carry that memory everywhere. Ethan, having always enjoyed our parents' favoritism, steered clear of us. Maybe he was scared of ending up like we did, shut out from the family. Julia and I were occasionally updated about family goings-on through cousins or relatives. Our parents bought Ethan multiple used cars over the years, covered his house deposit, and last year even paid for a fancy NYC trip for him and his girlfriend because he was working so hard. None of these privileges were extended to me or Julia. Recently, Julia got engaged to her longtime college boyfriend, Andrew, 29 male. I was thrilled. They're a great match, and Julia was over the moon, showing off her beautiful engagement ring. She posted proposal pictures online, and soon relatives started calling to congratulate her. Word spread fast, and suddenly our parents began blowing up our phones with calls and texts. It surprised us after years of apathy. Why were they suddenly this invested? The answer seemed obvious: appearances. Julia picked up my mom's call after a while. Mom gushed about the engagement. Julia was polite and said thanks. Soon, Mom began probing for info. Who is this Andrew? When could they meet him? Julia tried to sidestep, mentioning a busy schedule and the wild ride of wedding planning. Dad joined in, demanding they deserved to meet the man she'd marry. Their pressure worked, and Julia finally agreed. But only if I was present too. Our parents surprisingly accepted. I won't lie, we were anxious before that meetup. The tension was thick. Our parents tried really hard to play at being a warm, united family in front of Andrew. He did his best to keep things light, chatting about work and interests. Then came the main event, talking about the wedding. Our parents began subtly and not so subtly, suggesting how wonderful it would be for Dad to walk Julia down the aisle. And Mom wanted to be an integral part of the ceremony as well. Julia and I exchanged looks immediately. It was easy to see their actual motivation was what people would think, not supporting us. They wanted to avoid family embarrassment. Julia stayed polite, thanked them for their ideas, and then calmly told Dad she'd already chosen who would walk her down the aisle. Dad looked surprised and pressed her for the name. Julia smiled and said, "Grandpa." Our parents' shock was hard to miss. Their faces twisted from hopeful to outright angry. Mom sputtered, "But honey, It's tradition for your father to walk you down the aisle. You can't just break tradition. Julia replied calmly, Mom, I don't care about that. I want Grandpa beside me. He did more for us than you both did. You can come as guests, like everybody else. Dad interjected, You can't just exclude us. We're your parents. At that, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. I looked Dad in the eyes and said, You forgot how to actually be parents to us. You can't demand anything. That stung. Our parents got furious and started yelling, saying we were ruining their reputation. Julia stood her ground, saying they couldn't just show up for the best parts after neglecting us. I added that their actions had consequences and they couldn't rewrite history. We made it clear, if they wanted to come, they'd be regular guests, not wedding VIPs. Afterwards, we got a barrage of angry messages from our parents and relatives, accusing us of being selfish for not letting Dad walk Julia down the aisle. Am I the jerk here for telling our parents the truth and supporting Julia's choice? Update 1. It's only been a few hours since I posted, and the support here has been amazing. Thank you all. I've seen a lot of people asking about our grandpa, Phil. Julia has told him about the engagement, and he congratulated her warmly. He still doesn't know she wants him to walk her down the aisle. We want to share the news in person, so we've planned a visit to see him this weekend. Meanwhile, our parents haven't let up. They keep sending us angry texts. Dad even reached out to Andrew on Facebook, sending him a ridiculously long message telling him to knock some sense into Julia because he's the man in the relationship. He insisted only fathers should walk daughters down the aisle and threatened that if Julia went through with her plan, he and Mom wouldn't attend the wedding. Andrew's reply was perfect. My fiancée will do whatever she wants and I stand by her. It's your choice to attend the wedding or not. Dad probably wasn't expecting that. I can only imagine the look on his face. I'll update you all after we visit Grandpa. Update 2. This weekend, Julia and I visited Grandpa, Phil, to share our news. We could barely contain our excitement. Julia told him she had something big to ask. Grandpa listened, curious but gentle as always. Julia took a deep breath and said, I want you to walk me down the aisle at my wedding. You've always been there for us. I can't picture anybody else doing it. Grandpa was stunned and moved to tears. He hugged Julia tightly, telling her it was an honor. Watching Grandpa tear up, I joined in, and we all had a group hug. He kept thanking Julia, and we told him it was the least we could do, given all the love and support he's given us. Afterwards, we filled him in about the argument with our parents. We worried they'd target him with their frustration. But Grandpa just chuckled. He said he could handle our mom and nothing would stop him from being by Julia's side on her wedding day. Julia let out a sigh of relief. We spent the rest of the day helping Grandpa around the house. Now, with the wedding coming up fast, we're up to our ears in organizing everything, choosing the theme, picking Julia's dress, and sorting out seating. I can't wait to see her marry Andrew, her soulmate. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update. Life's gotten busy. Julia's wedding day came, and it was everything she dreamed of. The venue was beautiful, the guests filled the seats, and there was a fantastic sense of joy all around. Of course, our parents weren't there. They chose not to attend after we made it clear they could only be guests, and honestly, we respected their decision, even if it was bittersweet to notice their empty seats. The ceremony itself was pure magic. Julia looked radiant, walking hand in hand with Grandpa, who was beaming with pride. It was so clear that choosing Grandpa to walk her down the aisle was completely the right call. His love for us, always so steady and real, made the moment perfect. After the vows, everyone celebrated till late, dancing and sharing heartfelt toasts. Since then, Julia and I have blocked our parents for good. Their negativity is a thing of the past. Our lives are now about moving forward and focusing on the family we've created for ourselves. We still visit Grandpa as much as we can. Things haven't always been easy, but as we look ahead, it's all about surrounding ourselves with positive people who genuinely care. Hopefully, this is the last update. This story ends right here. The choices made by Emily and Julia highlight the different ways people respond to family trauma and the importance of building chosen, supportive relationships. The narrative underscores how neglected children may ultimately define family by who is truly there for them. What do you think? How would you have handled it if your parents tried to rewrite history for their own benefit? Would you let them back in, or draw a boundary as Emily and Julia did?